This week's Parsha Mishpatim, following last week's Parshat Yitro, leaves us as a people of Israel standing at Mount Sinai, having Moshe give us the law that God has handed down. And with that perspective, one might think that the law is written in stone, as it were. But as conservative Jews, we understand that it's much more complicated than simply pointing to a verse and saying, but look what the Torah says. It's never so self-evident what the Torah says. Our understanding of Torah comes from generations struggling with the text and trying to understand what it means in our time. This week, on Shabbat morning, I'll be speaking more about that issue as we explore Parshat Mishpatim, and we reflect in particular on the important issue that we are working on addressing as a congregation around the issue of same-gender celebrations of those relationships. Our state is stirring and struggling around that issue as an amendment has been proposed to be voted on in November to have the Constitution of the state of Minnesota say that those kinds of relationships are not legitimate. I think that's wrong. And I'll speak more about it this week. But I want to invite you to a training session on March 4th that will be held at Adath, Jeshurun, sponsored by Jewish Community Action, to train people who will work for the defeat of that amendment on March 4th. We'll explore a resolution that was passed unanimously by the Minnesota Rabbinical Association on principles kvod habriot, of respect for all people, and also on the obligation of lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, not to stand idly by when something's happening that we believe is simply wrong. People are of different opinions about how relationships of same-gender couples should be celebrated. There are differences of opinions in our state. There are differences of opinion in our congregation, and we honor that conversation that we are having. But the idea of enshrining it in the Constitution is simply wrong. So I hope you'll join with me on Shabbat morning to discuss this further. I hope that you will decide that this issue is important enough to you to come on March 4th to be trained to be an advocate to work against this amendment. Shabbat Shalom.